Hello everyone. In 2021 November, we had our first edition of Berlin Mental Health Festival. Part of the program, we had a panel talk about suicide prevention. And today, finally, I'm uploading the audio file, so please check it out.
So welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay, but I hope everyone's comfortable. So I want to welcome you all to the panel discussion today, where we're going to be discussing all things related to mental health and also topics related to suicide attempts and general support that we can offer as a community, and that we can maybe ways that we can ask for support as well if we're feeling like our mental health is suffering, or if we know somebody who is. This discussion panel is part of the Berlin Mental Health Festival, which is the first time that this is being organized. And it's a, yay! It is a week-long festival that hosts a series of different workshops. There are all kinds of events. There's a photography exhibition here that was opened last night by Olivia. Moni is running the space, I think. Yeah, the festival. Yeah, exactly. And we have tomorrow also stand-up comedy. We have a poetry evening on and storytelling evening on Saturday, and many, many more events. You can check them out on the website, which is berlin-mental-health-festival.com. De? Okay, either .com, I think. Yeah, .com. Right. So I think without further ado, we can get right into it. Would like to introduce our panelists for today. Are you guys fine there? Do you see me? Okay. Do you see them, more importantly? Yeah. So we have here our panel experts today. We're going to be talking with Sophie.charlotte.adler. We're going to be talking with Sen Zhang. With Alper Guney and Divia Vogel. I think it would be nice if you guys want to give a brief introduction of what you do, what is your area of expertise, and what brought you to this festival and this panel, maybe. Yeah? Maybe we start with you, Sophie?
Okay. Yeah, hi. I'm super happy to be here in such a cozy atmosphere. I'm not used to this size, but I really like it, and I'm happy to be able to spend some time with you. I'm a psychologist and hypnotherapist, and I'm specialized on working with altered states of consciousness since 2017. And I've wrote a book about psilocybin and its potential for modern psychotherapy in research and science, which was published by Karl Auer publisher in German. I wrote it in German. And I'm working since 2018 with ketamine and developed our own therapy method, which combines ketamine infusion with hypnotherapy. It's called ketamine-assisted hypnotherapy. And it's just incredible to see how effective it is for helping people with depression and suicidal ideation and pain. So I'm happy to join this panel tonight because we're going to talk about suicide, and it's super important to bring awareness to the potential of using psychoactive substances, but in the right setting. And I think we as a community really need to talk about that openly because we have a big issue with recreational use here in Berlin. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sen, and I feel somehow not quite resonant with the term expert. I don't really feel like I'm an expert because who can say, I'm the authority to go to. But my experience in mental health has been, I started my career as an occupational therapist working in both inpatient and outpatient psychiatry, and saw really people who were unwell, who were really struggling, and the cascading effect that it had on their families and social networks. I haven't been a clinical occupational therapist for several years now, so that's why I kind of I'm leaving that expert title behind. But what I learned in my time in mental health is that mental health presents itself subclinically everywhere. So everybody has mental health struggles and challenges, and that the line between someone who's a therapist and someone who is a recipient of therapy is very, very blurred. And that often I saw people who were working on the side of the intervention who were sicker than the people who were receiving the intervention. So I just really saw, it was like, it's just a matter of chance that I happen to be on this side rather than the other side. In terms of personal experience with suicide, my grandmother had several serious suicide attempts over the years, and it's something that my traditional Chinese family has not addressed at all, and something that remains still a question mark for me as to how to integrate those experiences. I have also had suicidal ideations a lot during my youth, was also quite depressed and anxious, but subclinically. And these days, I really tune into those instances, those feelings, because they still recur from time to time. And right now, my specific focus is on trauma integration, specifically transgenerational and intercultural trauma. And I host 2 podcasts these days. One of them is about an intentional community that I live in, and the other one is about Asian people who have lived in different cultures and who are integrating the many facets of Asian identity with who they are today. So thank you to Moni, and thank you to all of you for being here during this crazy rainstorm. And it's really wonderful to have this intimate conversation with you.
Hi, everyone, again. Well, that was nice introducing, actually. I don't know, yeah. I'm Alper Guney. I'm a clinical psychologist. Right now, I work for social psychiatry services, Sozialpsychiatriedienst in German. And I also seeing the patients privately. So I gave it like individual, family, and couple counseling, psychological counseling. And I'm here tonight to show that as my personal identity and also my professional identity that can struggle with mental health. And I would like to share this journey, how I try to deal with these problems or my mental health, how to keep my mental health as should be, and how I care my wellnesses, what is my coping strategies, what is my resilience strategies. So I'm here to share and listen and learn here tonight too. Thanks.
Hi everyone. I want to start with thanking Moni and all the organizers that I actually haven't met yet. This is actually my first time being here. It's a really amazing thing to do. I mean, I've been here in Berlin for almost 4 years. I've been in Germany longer. I used to live in Leipzig. That's where I studied. And I'm psychodynamic psychologist, and I'm also a DBT therapist, which means I work a lot with borderline personality disorders or personality disorders in general. And my practice is in Schöneberg, and we're running like skills training for with DBT therapy. And we also have a parental center, which offers workshops and classes for new parents. Mostly it's international focus because most of the people who works with me are expats, which means they speak English. And the main thing that we do is we're trying to close the gap where the safety net settings and public health system in Germany doesn't cover. So for example, you're trying to get an appointment, 116, 117, even you have the code, you can't really tell them like, I need an English speaking therapist, right? And we're trying to do that because first time I decided to open a private practice, I found out that lots of people are actually private therapists. It's not regulated how much they are allowed to charge. So you can technically charge a fortune for anything. And I was like, And I have a lot of young people coming to me and they're like, oh, I just graduated. I want to be like private therapist. I have my license, Heilpraktiker für Psychotherapie, super. Yeah, they're, because they know like, oh, we can make money here. And I was like, no, we're charging and maximum what public health insurance people are actually allowed to charge. Because I've been here since I left high school, basically starting my bachelor here, and then I found out how hard and how expensive it is to become a psychotherapist in Germany. Fortunately, they changed that last year in September, I think, so that it becomes more affordable, and hopefully will lead to more psychotherapists and in the future. That get covered by public health insurance or any health insurance in general. I'm mainly also here to share and to listen and to talk and share experiences with other experts and all of you guys. And thank you again for the organizers to organize this thing. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So we have one mic for each side. And I just realized I didn't introduce myself, so I'm Mel. I'm your host for the evening. I am not a therapist or anything close to it, I reckon, although that's debatable, some friends would say. But my connection to mental health, illnesses in general, all topics related to mental health and well-being is a pretty long ongoing story. There are several people in my family, myself somewhat included, that have struggled in the past or struggle currently with their mental health. And it's been a topic also just very present in my life for many, many, many years. One that for a long time, I think I didn't have nearly as much knowledge or education as I would have liked in order to kind of be able to manage and maneuver, the difficult situations that come up when you're dealing with mental illnesses, especially within the family as well. With a parental figure or two can be very challenging. So, and it feels sometimes like you're tapping in the dark. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to host this panel and take your questions and just kind of also learn a lot more. As it's just an ongoing topic of interest of mine. So really happy to have you all here. So I actually was just reviewing a little bit the questions that were kind of on the table for tonight. And I was wondering, or I'm thinking there's two different ways to go about this, because when we talk about things like mental health and we talk about the person, there's always the person that's suffering, the person that's struggling. And then there's always the person that is attached somehow to that person, right? So whether it be a family member, a friend, a partner, even a coworker, somebody that you care about is suffering, there's this perspective, right? There's like the one who wants to help and the one who needs the help. So I think it's really important that we address kind of both sides of these coins, because they both come with their own set of complications, I think, and just kind of little nuances. But I think what kind of pulled me just instinctively, so I'll go with that, is to start out actually with the person struggling with the mental health, especially maybe somebody, for example, who might be feeling already, on the border of feeling very suicidal, or, they're feeling like they're getting there. I think, at least my experience has been as well, that sometimes you have a bit of an inkling when you're getting down there, when you're getting there. So what is, maybe start off there, what's the most important thing that somebody who is really struggling right now to that point, what's the most important thing they need to know right now, like in that moment? Let's take it from there. And what would you each say would be something that it's key. It's like the one major thing or two.
That you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, naturally humans are, social being. It's natural to not want to be alone, to can't be alone. And, when you're feeling down in general, like sometimes asking for help is like, no, or you have already you're thinking about I'm already so much of a burden and don't want to seek any help. Like I feel so lonely. But if you're asking me, like the most important thing to know is like that you're not alone and you're never alone, and reach out to anyone who could hear you. You know, even if it's like, if you sometimes obviously you have like sometimes you just don't feel like talking to your partner, but your partner is right there. Just don't overthink it. Share. Try to let it out there. It's like the first step, getting it out there, like all those emotions and all those feelings. Because that's just, I don't know about you.
Beautiful, thank you.
Well, there's a lot of path over there. So who we are, what is our personal identity, professional identity, or our sources. Just in this situation, focusing on the present moment, and then So some mental health problems, yes, we born with those mental health problems, but sometimes we didn't born with this and we just got a term of our life, and we know that this might be temporarily. So we just need to focus on what I want to do, where I am in the present moment, and then what sources I have it, how to activate it, or am I want to activate it this one, or like, turn back to yourself, yes, and also open yourself, because being vulnerable, opening yourself and being vulnerable, this is also like a key, based on my perspective, to starting to change a positive way.
Thank you. It's a really difficult question to answer because I don't know if there's one most important thing, because everyone's situation is different, and why someone might be feeling like I can't handle it anymore is very diverse. So I guess I'll say a few things that come to mind is, one, building on what Divya was saying, this feeling of aloneness is so desperate. It feels completely isolating. It feels almost like it doesn't matter if I'm here or not. And I think that the difficulty often comes when we have thoughts and we believe the thoughts, and we think that the thoughts have to be true. If I'm thinking them over and over and over again, I can't be here anymore. I need to die. I need to kill myself. It's really difficult to kind of distance yourself from it. And yet I think this is the practice, and it's a difficult thing to practice in those moments of desperation, of remembering that the thoughts are like the clouds in the sky, and we are the sky. And to build on what Alper was saying, that asking for help is also, or asking for help is again difficult, and this is also the practice, because you might ask for help once or twice, and you might not get the help that you're looking for. It might not be the thing that, someone says something to you and you're like, oh, that makes it actually worse. Why did you say that to me? And the thing to remember is, it's almost like if you can kind of get yourself in this cognitive frame of mind, it's kind of like a numbers game. It's like the more times that you ask for help, the more likely it is that you're going to find someone who will be able to give you a little bit. And that the idea is not that we go from completely black to completely white, that we go from I'm 100% suicidal to 0% suicidal. The goal is that we just take the edge off by 2 or 3%, so that we can make it to the next thing and make it to the next thing. And that's the practice of continuing to ask for help from different sources and to take what works and leave the rest, because there's probably going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't work. I think, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wow, there was so much great things said already. Maybe I can add this, like, sometimes it's okay to be in the dark, and that this person doesn't fight against that or stops comparing her being in the moment and this feeling of sadness and darkness to other moments in the past or ideas about the future. Maybe really like allowing yourself that you are in the moment in a really dark place, and get comfortable in that dark place, because that's a big part of our human experience. And in the animal world, we see it a lot of times, right? That certain animals need to feel uncomfortable to grow. Like the snake, one day her skin is like too tight and she needs to get out of that skin, and that's a really long and not easy process, and that we allow ourselves to be sometimes not good, not functioning the way we think we should function, and just be in that darkness.
Yeah, thank you. I loved all these answers. Beautiful. And it all resonated with me, maybe hopefully with you as well. And it actually brought up for me the question of, right, so the process that we do when we're facing and we're working through a mental illness or a mental health struggle. This process can be so difficult. It can be such an emotional roller coaster, and it can take us down pathways that and make us open up doors that we didn't even imagine were there, yet alone what's behind them. And it can really be gut-wrenching. So in that process, what are some things that somebody who's going through all of this, what are some things that they can do that can help them cultivate a sense of balance and groundedness, maybe a sense of here-ness while they're going through this inner darkness? I think that's the easiest thing that slips out of someone's control or out of someone's present moment awareness is this. It's all here. I'm not even here, so I might as well not be here. So yeah, what are things that can help them go through this transition? Maybe, I guess, both with others and then also for themselves, because even though we're communal beings, we're oftentimes alone. So yeah, what are different practices or just different ideas, thoughts? Mm-hmm. Whoever wants, you can all answer freely.
I don't want to always.
No, whoever. There's no order. Whoever. Yeah, just grab a mic and.
Okay.
If you want to talk,
Sure.
just go
Okay,
ahead.
I can start. And there's no exhaustive list, right? So I can share my experience during the lockdown. I locked down by myself for 6 months, as many of us did, and went through like one of the most difficult periods of mental health in my life. And exactly as you mentioned, it was like, I'm all up here. I'm not anywhere else. If I died in my apartment, nobody would know. For weeks, nobody would know. And that was a very, I felt like I was in outer space, very isolating event. It was also very peaceful in some ways, but also very isolating and difficult. And what I realized was that, okay, so it's very, common knowledge, but it's difficult to do, is we need to use our bodies. We need to use our hands, because using our hands gets us out of our brains. And whatever that looks like for each person, it could be as simple as going for a walk. The power of going for a walk, especially in the daytime, where we can get the sunlight in our eyes and activate our circadian rhythms so that we can have a better chance of being able to sleep. Because sleep is really, really, really tied to wellness in every aspect. Like, we cannot ignore that enough. So being able to regulate our sleep and going to bed around the time that we're supposed to go to bed and getting up around generally, it doesn't have to be crazy. And just slowly starting to do that. So waking up and then going outside for even a 10-minute walk around the block will do so much. And then simple things with our hands. If you can cook any kind of meal for yourself, it can be as simple as opening up a vegan schnitzel and then putting it in a pan. It doesn't have to be crazy. But if you can, do something where you peel vegetables, where you chop things, you stir a pot, and then you do the dishes, that's something that activates your ability to care for yourself. And in occupational therapy, we call these activities of daily living. So when you engage in normal activities of daily living, it really helps to regulate. And if you want to do something creative, if you want to paint or draw, and it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. In fact, it's probably better if it's not a masterpiece. You can like scribble with a crayon. I've done that many times. Take a little leaf and then make a crayon leaf print out of it. It's something that this repetitiveness of the motion is what gets us out of our brains. So I think that those are the really foundational pieces of activating our bodies and activating the natural systems of regulation that we have. And then after we do that, then we can start doing some other things. Sending voicemails to friends has also been a huge savior for me. Just walking and talking, walk and talk o'clock is what I called it, where I go and I send 15-minute voicemails to friends, and then they send them back to me, and then we have hours of conversation asynchronously.
I call it personal podcast.
Oh, me too. Exactly, personal podcast. Yeah, I'm a podcaster, so that's yeah.
I mean, you said something about, you're having this cloud over your head, and you don't do what, you normally do, right? So trying to get back into rhythm, like trying to establish like habits or routine. Even the word, like when you're there, it will feel like it's such a big word, like a routine, like a morning routine, evening routine, sleep hygiene. But just little things like, I don't know, if you drink coffee or tea in the morning, just take a minute. You can combine it with practicing gratitude or awareness. Make the coffee and try close your eyes. Try to feel how it smell, the warmth of everything. Try just to take some moment for yourself, and maybe don't touch your phone in the morning before you do that, and then you can go back to all the social media and phone or everything. Just take a moment just for yourself and just try to take everything in, to be aware of your surroundings and everything. And Mel said something about something, and also in a relationship level. This is something that I tell my client a lot. For example, you can improve your routines in personal level, and your relationship level, and professional level. So remember these three things if you want to start a new routine. Like in personal level, you can just start, I don't know, you want to start incorporating some physical activities, for example, because it releases hormones that makes you happier, maybe a morning run or something. That's something that you can do for yourself, personal. Or just you want to start eating breakfast in the morning. That's also something personal. And in relationship level, you could make plans, try to make weekly plans with, I don't know, your partner, your friends, or do something that maybe a community yoga or something. It also counts, meeting new people or coming to one of these events, something that makes you have interaction with someone else other than yourself. And another routine that you can do is like on a professional level, maybe I don't know, maybe you want to connect with more people in your field when you're already happy in your field, browse LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, Facebook, or what's a Bumble business?
Oh yeah,
I just signed up.
Yeah.
And or maybe you're not happy where you are, you're looking for a job, just maybe like give yourself an hour every week, start small. And what I always tell my client is like, these routines needs to be realistic. It doesn't need to be, okay, I need to find a new job. I will put 1 hour every day from Monday to Saturday. I will take Sunday free. And if you can't do it for one day because you're too tired, it's okay. Give yourself grace. And always remember, if you don't, get these little goals, if you can't reach it, it's okay. Because we're only humans. I mean, we're not perfect.
I can add something about like recently I working on and learned to wellnesses. So there's an approach that like a wellnesses had 7 sub dimension and like sublines that, and one of this the sublines is like a physical area where you can make it yourself, your body physically like busy or more stronger. And there's also like more energy dimension that like at this 7 dimension, there's like energy level where you can something going on your brain chemical level or your body, and your body's reacting like some symptoms, maybe based on like panic attack, maybe stress, maybe anxiety, maybe like losing someone, griefs, maybe like any other stuff, maybe like the relationship problem, work problem, burnout, whatever. But what we learned is our body shows the symptoms, this like heart beating, or pulse, and like pain on the chest, headache, migraines, all this like blurred eye views, and there's like losing hearing sensation or like smell, or like getting very sensitive. This is all our body shows that our body wants to protect us and give a signal. Look, what's going on? Give attention, give it time. So do something. Look, this is the symptoms, and what you gonna do? Okay, what am I gonna do? What is my option? What is my resources? It's a great idea, Dad. Go for a walk, go for running. Like personally what I do, even the weather is super cold, rainy, whatever, I tell myself, I don't care. You go on running. And I go running, take like shower. The shower is like really helping, makes me relax, relieve. And then like I try to do, of course I don't do all that stuff at the same time, but what I'm gonna do, meditation. This really helps me, like, any kind of meditation. You call like based on the religion meditation, meditation, or like some philosophical meditation, or like any, I don't know, alternative or mindfulness meditation, and take a deep breath meditation. There's many bunch of like meditation techniques there, but I do also like I follow one of that, so it really helps me. If you guys ask me what I am doing it, so this is what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so great. All those.
Taking notes.
Yeah, take notes. Yeah. What to add? I often practice with my clients to be a good friend to yourself, like the inner conversation, like the way you talk to yourself, that you imagine you're talking to your best friend. Because we're often very hard to ourselves. We are often so hard to ourselves, way more than we would ever be to our friends or loved ones. And that's something really, really beautiful to see and to experience when you start to be nice to yourself and kind and say, okay, well, it's pretty dark here, but hey, we are in here together, yeah. Like, and really taking care of your inner dialogue. And if it's really like uncomfortable, what always helps a lot is concentrate on your breath and maybe have some attention to how are you breathing? Is it more up here, or do you breathe really deeply into your tummy? Because then you can connect to that kind of Buddha nature, you know, this like really deep into your belly, and then feel this relaxation that can come totally natural only through your breathing. And that's, I think, two things that you can practice every day on a gentle way, and you're gonna see the more you do it, the more easier it becomes to open up for all these things you want to do but somehow can't, right? Go running and go meditation. And because when people are really suffering, when they are really depressed and really suicidal or really anxious, they can't start easily a new habit, right? Because it's like, it's too much. How? They can't even get up in the morning. So, and then really, like someone said, little steps, like not everything at once, like not changing the world in one day. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all these things that you said, because I find them all to be very true. But also specifically this last part, right, of this challenge of when someone is so unwell that like even the thought of putting on a pair of like shoes and like jogging pants and going for a run is like a straight up nope in capital letters. It's just not going to happen. Like they can't. One thing just to add, I think that I found to be really helpful during the pandemic, because everything was so silent. That was ironically the first lockdown was not when I was struggling. I started struggling in September, very hard, like very, very hardly. And but one thing that I found to be throughout the last couple of years of my life very, very helpful, for the moments where you feel the most disconnected from the world, bear with me, it is to sit, lay, stand, whatever you want to do by a tree and touch it. Touch a tree and really look at it, like look at the bark, the details, the little ants, the little bugs that are inside the tree, the roots of the tree. Look up the tree, look down the tree, walk around the tree, whatever you want to do, hug it, kiss it, whatever works for you. Or if you just want to be awkward about it and just sit next to it and pretend like you're not touching the tree, that works too. Whatever will get you to like be by a humongous being that cannot speak to you or say anything or do anything except for just be, and remind you that I found it to be such a gentle reminder of like, okay, well, this tree is here and it's been here for forever, or much longer than I've been here because, well, look, it's a huge tree. How many hundreds of years has it been here? I don't know, but it's survived all kinds of weather and it seems to still be standing, even if it's crooked. Maybe I have a fighting chance, kind of. I found that somehow to be, there's something, it's so simple that we all forget it, especially in a city.
I totally agree, and it's called this sensory walking, or probably you know that, right?
Yeah, barefoot is even better. If you can
absolutely.
Get
so
yourself
it's called
barefoot,
like sensory walking, so if you guys into,
But I feel like that's a simple thing that I found that even on the worst days, you can manage to get outside your house to the proximity of a tree and somewhat awkwardly at least just stand next to it and touch it. And I feel like it does something to get you out of the head and into a different place, whatever place that might be. But there was something that I wanted to get into now, actually, because there's something that you brought up, that don't pick up your phone. So we know that social media is very present in the industrialized world, in Western countries especially. And I know that oftentimes the association with social media is that it actually causes a lot of struggles for people because of this comparison paradigm that we're living under. But I was wondering, in what ways do you all feel social media can be helpful for somebody when they're struggling? How can it be helpful? And also, are there specific platforms or are there ways of using a platform, a larger platform that we know, like Instagram or Facebook or something, that can that could help, that could assist somebody if they're not even capable of getting out of their bed and the only thing they can do is grab their phone? Maybe how do they do this in a way that won't harm them but help them? Yeah. How do you all see this?
I think like everything is doses that can be beneficial or harmful. Yeah, it depends of like what is our main goal or to reason to consuming or using these platforms or using social media. Yeah, like it might be affect positively or it might be affect negatively. Depends of like what is our approach or mentality to consume such stuff. No, I know a lot of platforms which is like this pandemic times like rise up a lot of startups, online platforms. One like mental health, Talk Now, which is the Talk Now. I also work to Talk Now, so it's like. There's a rule. It doesn't matter like I want to go visit a therapist or not. There's a strict rules that I can't or I can't even or when I call them like, oh, we don't have accept new patient. Sorry, we booked. Sorry, like there's a waiting list and because about corona. So it's like, so what is my options then? This with pandemic, our life, I think based on my approach, like get more limited and not so much options out there. So I think if we needed some mental health professions to reach and get help, there's a lot of the online platform where we can reach. There's also like the support groups, like via to Telegram or WhatsApp, Zoom meetings, and that was so funny because this pandemic time, like all the clubs and the bars was closed, and I love dancing. I'm a big fan of the dancing. It's one of my coping strategy, actually. So I like Google it. Where's like people dancing? Where do people goes? And it's like I discovered that in the Twitch there's like a dancing group. They making an online dancing event. So I participated. We started like at 12. Till like morning 4, 5, everyone's grabbed their drinks, dancing. There was a costume, everyone's weird. That was like helped me actually to keep not to feel social isolated. So I think again I would like to back my first sentence. Depends of our goals, depends of like our approach and how we would like to use this platform. No. So.
When I was reviewing your questions, it was more like about what kind of social media that can be helpful. And the first thing that came into my mind was like the pros and cons of the social media. Because something that we do also in my practice is we have a class for body positivity. And a huge chunk of that, people who's responsible for this problem is actually the advertising and social media and all of this. Open Instagram, oh, okay, I don't have that body, I want to have that body. And you feel down, okay, I don't want to get out of the bed. That's a very simple thing, a picture that can just put you down so far below and, you ruin your day, basically. Just as simple as one picture. So like you said, it's something that you have to wait in yourself and imagine in the pandemic with all the, the suicide rate in kids or in adolescents are higher because they can't really meet with their friends and I remember when you're like 14, 15, 16, 17, all that I wanted to do is like being with my friends. I don't want to be with my family, I just want to be with my friends. And schools are closed, right? For months, and classes are online and you can't really participate in class, and so social media has been helping all these kids and all these people like us, me, to connect with family, people that we can't see. One side it's a very good thing that it exists, but it's not like I'm praising Zuckerberg or something. But obviously on Facebook, there's like groups, and this mental state in Berlin where I found out about this. Exactly, where we find each other. I mean, it's very helpful, I don't know what the number is. I mean, we should do a study, like how many people actually got help and have their life changed from this group, which is not very. It doesn't have. I don't know how many members it has now. 6,000. But I bet there are lots of people that, because I also connected with some people there, and yeah, they're saying like, oh, thank you, this is very resourceful, and that's just one or two lives that's changed by this one group. And imagine how many groups out there. There are also forums, also very specific ones, not just for mental health issues, but also for other health issues. There are always like a forum or an app or something, and they usually have something. And I'm not just talking about the person who has the problem itself, also for the family members. There are support groups. I don't know if people already know the first contact of a support group that is actually covered by the states, like SEKIS. I think lots of them, because of the lockdown, they also do like virtual things. They are really organized. They have their own platform, or they use Zoom and stuff like that. They really made an effort to make the virtual thing happen during the lockdown, which I was really like surprised. Yeah, I mean, it's not very easy doing this transition from the beginning. Like, I think, I don't know about others, but as doctors and Heilpraktiker für Psychotherapie, you're not really allowed to see patients virtually if you've never seen them in person at least one time. And I think the rule was waived in the middle of the pandemic or something, and I think it's still going on. I'm not sure, because I'm only seeing my clients in person right now. But lots of people are making an effort, restaurants, to go online. So it's something that we don't know how long this pandemic is going to stay. We're still there. And I'm just grateful that we have choices. Yeah, but still we need to keep it in the back of our mind that not social media is not like 100. It's not a solution, but it's like a support, one tool to cope.
I kind of feel like checking in with the audience and seeing how everybody's feeling. I just noticed that one person stepped out, and I was just wondering if if people are feeling like energized, or if they need to stand up and stretch a little bit.
You all good, or you all just attentively listening?
Sounds already great. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, feel free if at some point you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and
just holler.
Yeah, I'm attentive to your needs.
Yeah. What was the Facebook group you mentioned? It's called Mental State in Berlin. Mental State in Berlin.
Yeah. It's really good.
Really good, yeah.
I think that social media for me is not really too different from other kinds of media, in the sense that there's going to be things that it's also not so different from relationships, where there's going to be people or inputs in our lives that create certain reactions in us. And sometimes those reactions can be a bit addictive. Sometimes, I'm browsing social media and I come across something, I'm like, oh, I'm so mad at that. Give me some more, and and I watch that, and then I'm like, wow, it keeps me attentive. It keeps me scrolling, and then 2 hours later, I'm like, wow, that was a rabbit hole, and I think about how that also applies sometimes to people in my life, where I'm kind of with a person and they produce a certain reaction in me, and I'm like, oh, I don't really like this, but somehow I keep on getting sucked into it. And I think that there's a curation process that we can do for ourselves in all aspects of inputs in our lives, including social media and people, and and other kinds of input like Netflix and YouTube, and to kind of pay attention to what are the things that make me go and to slowly start to maybe distance myself a little bit from that, the same way that I might distance myself from people that make me do the same thing. And the same thing as to introduce inputs that I'm like, oh, every time I have that input, I feel so much calmer, or I feel like I have a little bit more space or insight into myself. Not only because I'm a podcaster, but I find that podcasts are really great ways of creating space. I really enjoy the works of Gabor Mate and Esther Perel, because they also talk about other people's issues, but I see myself reflected in those issues often. And sometimes, like, therapy is difficult to access sometimes, and if you can't access therapy for yourself, sometimes you can access somebody else's therapeutic process and learn through what they're learning. And I think this ties into the idea that we're not alone. It's like, I'm not the only person experiencing this specific kind of issue. There's a whole host of other people, and here's the way that they're dealing with it. So if there's something that you naturally gravitate to, that you're like, I really feel good when I do that, try to bring more of that closer to you and push away some of the stuff that it's like junk food for your brain.
Well said.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, maybe really that kind of hygiene aspect, right? So if someone is really struggling with too much using social media and phone, that you set yourself times without phone, right? And that you really plan that. And at the beginning of Corona, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So let's see what there's all online to help clients that can't go to see their therapist anymore. Because that was an issue too, because I worked in Mallorca before, and we had suddenly that problem that all our clients were not able to arrive anymore because they all would have needed the plane, but the airport was closed. So I was like, okay, that's like really, really tricky, right? So I think to really do some research and see, okay, what kind of apps are out there, because there are interesting apps, and how do I like using that app, and how can that maybe help me to get more into the self-care instead of the social media? Because in the end, I think our thumb is so used to do that movement, and that has like a feedback in the brain. It's not necessarily only that what you consume. It's more the like subconsciously mechanism of, oh, I'm doing something, and that's for me as a psychologist super interesting, right? Because all these social media are based on similar way that gets the dopamine going, and that's similar to cocaine, and that's super interesting. No, really, that it's like built on that dopamine feedback.
I mean, it's a real thing, social media addiction.
Yeah.
There's a documentary on this called Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
That's specifically about this, how it was crafted.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's super terrifying, but it's a weird thing, and that happens to all of us without that we really know about it. But it's affecting all of us. I was just like when I was asked here for the Corona Nachweis, I was like, what? Imagine we all wouldn't have an iPhone or like a smartphone.
I have a few friends that don't have one. They have to break out their paper,
Yeah, but it's like we are so used to using those phones. And I think that's like, as you said, do something with your hands. I mean, maybe it's getting from this angle, it's like, okay, we as humans like using our hands, but we don't do much with our hands anymore. So that phone is
kind of like a feeling of accomplishing something, but you're not really accomplishing something.
Yeah, and that's that weird gap that then gets you really downwards, kind of. Yeah, so my thoughts.
Yeah. It's perhaps a matter of also curating, right? Like what content, I think curating the content of what it is you're consuming on the social, like it doesn't have to be so.
Social media cleanse, not a
Yeah.
detox, but just a cleanse of your people you're following,
Yeah, like a spring cleaning and all that. Yeah.
But I talked with my best friend about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I took the phone of my brother and just like changed some of his some of the people he's following, and now he has totally different impact." And and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." Yeah, because it's so hard for yourself to create other input because you're in your way of, right? But if you just handle your phone to one of your friends who you really like of that, or some different, then you can get totally different feedback.
Absolutely. I think it's hilarious that you said this because I noticed this so much this year actually. Like I just changed a lot of my Instagram. I stopped using Facebook basically, and then on Instagram I changed a lot of the people that I was following, even like pop stars. They're just kind of like people that maybe you like their music, but then their social media content, you were like, it's not really enriching me when I'm looking at this. It's kind of like triggering me somehow, or it's bringing stuff up that I don't really feel I need to be looking at all the time. And I actually just stopped following them and started following Esther Perel, Gabor Mate, and like a lot of kind of like different either websites or pages or podcasts or speakers that were in this realm of either psychology, transformational coaching, well-being, or spirituality, anything. And I found that actually it can be pretty motivating then when you grab your phone and you scroll for a bit and it's all these like positive messages and you're like, all right, okay, well maybe life is not terrible. Like things are okay.
I can recommend one. There's on Instagram, there's a holistic psychologist.
Oh yes,
Really
Nicole Lepera.
like saved me like throughout so many things.
Yeah, very educational as well. She wrote a book as well called How to Do the Work, and it just came out like
And she has a podcast now, so it's really
excellent. It's like
touches upon like everything and really helps you understand what triggers your state of mind and depression and feelings and up and down and
yeah.
whatever, like where it's coming from. It's super well done.
Yeah, it's visually crafted in a way that's very easily to follow, and it's very, the posts are like step by step for also, it's really well done, like taking apart different personality disorders and holistic psychologist, yeah.
The holistic psychologist. It's
Yeah.
really highly recommend.
Yeah,
It's easy to read.
And it explains
Super.
everything about being a child and like everything.
yeah.
We talk to the mic.
Oh yeah. It's a great starting point also, like for anybody who wants to do a bit more research on something, because you get like the base, you'll be able to identify yourself with whatever is going on in one of her posts, and then you can go deeper from there. But I was actually curious now to turn it in, to turn the conversation also towards the helpers. Because I think one of the things that I've noticed over the course of my life, I guess, is that when you have a loved one or someone who's just dear to you, who's struggling really hard and they're struggling with their mental health, and this can be anywhere from depression to anxiety to personality disorders that are just really triggering. It could be, the range is really, really wide here. When you're the supporter and you're the person who is, for example, in the pandemic, I think a lot of people had to play the role of the supporter, right? Being maybe the ones that are a bit more stable, and they can hold space for the person who's struggling. What I've noticed is that in that process, when you're holding space for somebody else, it can be really challenging, as in you can get triggered yourself in a lot of your own issues that they might not be as bad, if we want to put it that way, but it can still bring up a lot of emotional instability for yourself, and it can be really challenging to navigate that. So what I'm curious to hear is how do we hold space as people for, like, how do we hold space and compassion for ourselves and for the person who's struggling? How do we receive the pain that somebody's going through without it permeating us? Yeah, and it really like triggering us too much. How do we create these boundaries and these, because I think that can be so challenging. Yeah, I'm very curious who here, if somebody in the audience also knows, welcome to join in.
I just have like one like kind of simple thought to that. It's like one of my siblings, sister brothers, he got like in a really like maniac phase, right? And then the family group was like over like full of input all the time, Zzz, bing, 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 bing. And I had big time, like I was like very worried and like really because I've been so far away, and then it's always this feeling of like, yeah, I want to help because I love that person, but I'm not next to that person, and somehow it's their own way. So I can say, hey, I'm here for you to support you when you want to talk, but I can't run after you all the time, right? So because that what you do is like your own decision. You're like, yeah, and that was like crazy times. But then I said one day, like I wrote a message to all of my family members and was like, okay, now I need to take care about myself, and I feel like this group is not helping me to deal with that time we are all in together properly. So please give me a call if you want to talk to me, and yeah, get into direct contact, because that whole thing of reading and not being really able to interact, that made me really sad. And there I had to say, hey, okay, now I need to make a cut, which was crazy for me because I love my family so much. But then I was like, fuck this WhatsApp thing, you know? I mean, come on, we had a time before. So no, if you want to interact with me, then please reach out on a like personal or yeah, level where we can talk, and not being in your head all the time or just reading, because that can amplify the worries and sadness and like struggle so much, right? And it gives a somehow a Bühne, a stage to that person who's struggling, right? Because that person gets feedback then all the time. And it's like, hey, okay, you use somehow the others to create your feedback, that you can stay on your like crazy path you're in right now, because you're not able to see how it affects the others, because that we need to be aware about, right? The people that are struggling, that are not able to think about really like, okay, what's going on in the others, because they are so obsessed with their own struggle and issues. Yeah, so I think it's super important to listen to yourself and say, okay, how much can I be supportive, and what do I need, and what can I give myself to be able to support in the best way? And when I realize, like, okay, now I'm full, now I'm not able to help you or listen to you the way you deserve it, I have to make a break, and we talk another time. Yeah, it's really about making boundaries, but not then having the feeling, oh, I make boundaries and maybe this person kills itself now, and then it might be my fault or something, right? You really need to step out of that kind of toxic, wie sagt man, Verantwortung? Responsibility, yeah, because somehow you still need to give the other person the chance to take their own responsibility. And if that person is going mad at the moment, well, okay, I'm still your sister. I'm still here for you when you're ready to interact with me on a way I can interact with you. Yeah. That was pretty personal, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to answer this question without getting into the specifics, you know? Right? Yeah. Because it's like, you know, the question, if I remember it, is how does the person who finds themselves in the position of helping another who's suffering deal with that? And it's like, you know, how is the other person suffering? Are they distancing themselves and you're just kind of feeling them getting further and further away as you watch them struggle? Or are they completely in your life and you cannot get away from the presentation of the difficulty, you know, or is it somewhere in between? So I think that you mentioned boundaries. I'm really happy that you brought that up, because the awareness of our own capacities is paramount to our own wellness, and it takes a long time to be aware of your own boundaries. It's not an easy thing, you know. You can't just be like, oh, there's my boundaries, that's it, you know. And boundaries are such interesting things because it changes depending on what context you are in and who you're dealing with. So the boundaries that I have with my partner are going to be much more flexible and loose, if you know that's a good relationship, versus the boundaries that I have with my mother. You know, but for somebody else, that might be actually the opposite way around. So I think this this feeling out of what's okay for you and what starts to be in the range of not okay, that's really that's another practice, and that involves a lot of awareness of what's happening in my body. And so, my difficulty typically is that I get people who somehow get over-involved in my life. They need too much from me because I happen to be a person who, empathizes a lot and gives a lot. And so my sensitivity is that I start to get really anxious when I'm locked into conversation with someone for much longer than I want to be, and I can't leave the conversation, and this person keeps on coming back into my life, and they want to keep meeting up, and I don't know what to do. And so, my sensitivity to that is like, I start to notice that, my heart rate is going up and my body is getting tense, and I start to not be able to breathe as freely. So now I know that my boundaries are starting to be encroached upon. And it's okay when that starts to happen, but I have to start responding to it. I can't wait for the other person to tune into it because they don't know. They can't tell. Especially if I'm a person, maybe like some people here, who's cultivated this calm exterior, where it's like, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And that's what encourages, people to come and give more of their stuff to you. So it's up to me to start saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, for example. And it's really important to have the words prepared ahead of hand. So that you're not caught off guard and you don't know what to say. So it's like, if you notice that you're frequently in these situations, to practice saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or do you mind if we take a break? Or I need to, go to the bathroom, or let's talk about this another time, not that I don't care about it. And an important thing to put the emphasis on I rather than you're making me anxious. Because when you put it on yourself, people can't really argue with that. They can't say, no, you're not feeling anxious, or no, you're not overwhelmed. And when you make it about yourself, to let them know what the impact is on you, generally, even if people are unwell, they don't want to impose upon you. They don't want to make your experience more difficult. They also want to help you help them. So if you can say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, can we take a break? Usually it's really quite fine. Whereas if we say you're too much, then there's this antagonistic kind of reaction to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. If we're talking about helpers, maintaining like a clear communication with others and creating like safe space, boundaries. And something else that I want to add is if we're talking about the helpers role here, talking with other people with similar experience. There are obviously support group for, depression or cancer or whatever. But there are also support group for family members of people suffering depression or people suffering. Exactly. That's what many people probably don't know. And right now, obviously, also because of the lockdown, we don't know where to go. I'm great that, for example, this the website from the Berlin Mental Health Festival, you have resources, something that you can access online. So, help are out there. And talking with other people with similar experiences also helps to just exchange experiences and or just to let your feelings out there. I think. Do you want to add something?
Based on the term social support, it's important to know that where's the receiver, who's the giver, and there's non-written agreement between those two subjects. If the who needs the help as a supporter, the person doesn't need my help or not seeking to my help, so I cannot try to put my help. No, you need my help, so take it. I'm here for you. It's So this is also based on my approach and personal perspective that that's not okay. So what I'm saying that it should be the both side should agreed on that. It's hey, I'm looking some help. Oh yeah, I think I can provide some help about this. I'm making this now the sentence, but this is more about non-written rules, or if I provide the social support, I have to care myself too. I have to care my mental health level too. Like, because I cannot try to be, give all. So then I'm gonna be turned as I need to help. So this is going to be like create a paradigm that like I cannot solve it. So what I'm understanding is to helping someone, a family member, classmate, workmate. So like, a certain amount that we can provide help if who looking to help, they needs our help and they ask our help. It just ask not like, okay, I beg your help, or like, hey, like announcing I needed help. It might be that way too. But what I'm saying that without marginal examples, there is a average way to that, like communication, non-violent communication, and also I want to point it out, emotional communication. It's like mostly people think that like a communication is like, what you're saying, what you're thinking based on like ideas. No, but there is an emotional communication as well. As like a body posture, body language might be also part of the emotional communication. And we can understand it. This person not saying it verbally needs or seeking our help, but we can understand it, the signals. But we can also give a signal or offer, not like, okay, you need help, I'll give my help, and you don't have any choices, you have to take it, you have to accept it. No, this is what I'm saying, that again, to summarize, like, there is a certain non-written rules that an agreement that like we have to try to understand it as well. Who seeking help, it should ask or open himself or herself about this help, and other provider or supporter, social supporter, also put on the table that what can provide it, what can help, which cases or which circumstance, or like how, and this might be more healthy way to keep both sides healthy. Keep their mental health both sides.
I maybe add something. I'm happy that you said this this part about do you need my help? Because I think, speaking from my own experience, I used to be like a serial helper. I needed to fix people. I needed to save people. And that was part of my own non-understanding of, first of all, my limitations as a human being, and second of all, of what role I was invited into, So people who didn't need me to be there to, take their every fall, I still threw myself at them because I needed to feel important. That was a big thing. I needed to feel like I could make a difference, and that this person would languish without me. That was something about my own ego, and it was also hard for me to see people suffer because I couldn't understand their suffering. I wanted to alleviate them of the thing that I was like, oh, you shouldn't be going through that. It doesn't make sense that you go through that, and that was not my place, because each person has their own story, and the suffering is something is happening. It doesn't come from nothing. And even if I had the power to take that away, it wouldn't be my place to do that. So there's this joke that I'm sure everyone has heard. How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Right? One, but the light bulb has to change itself. Has it want to change itself? And it's this, it's like, not to say that, oh, it's your problem, it's totally up to you to fix yourself now, you're on your own, but to understand that the other person has agency, and we don't have any place to take that agency away from them. And it's more, these days, I cultivate more of an attitude of curiosity and helping the other person to be curious, to inquire alongside them rather than have this kind of top-down hierarchical approach. And to just say, how do you see your situation? This is what I see, but that's just what's happening on my side. Do you see the same thing? And what's your understanding of what's happening right now? And there might be some things that come out that we had no idea about. And sometimes people do need to suffer more so that they can suffer less later. And this is so hard because it hurts so much to see someone close to you suffer, and you want to take it away. And somehow it's still their own path to walk.
I love that you said it brought up this thought. Yeah, well said. My goodness. That was fantastic. It brought up this like a catchphrase almost that I feel like has been circulating in my head the last like year and a half, which is judge less, ask more. It doesn't matter if you're the helper or if you're the one that needs the help. Judge less, ask more. Just the things that come out when we just ask the other person to just keep going into things and just to keep looking into the nuances and you know, it can shift a lot within us. And I think, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is going along this line of like, how can we be the best kind of supporters, and also how can we create a society that is more compassionate and more supportive and embracing of people struggling with a whole amalgama of mental health issues. Is, you know, like what are things that we can do if we, let's say, we either want to create a support group for as you mentioned, for family members. I remember my father passed away from cancer many years ago, and I remember at the time very vaguely like, I think my mother, I was a teenager at the time, and I think my mother like kind of flew by the option of like, do you guys maybe want to like feel like you need to go to like a support group for like kids of parents with disease? And I remember just being like, what? Huh? No, I don't know. That feels weird. I don't think I want to do that. But it wasn't really like clear to me, actually, until you said this again. It wasn't really clear to me, right? This is the thing. There's support groups for the supporters, and then there's support groups for those that are struggling. So let's say we want to create a support group. You know, we come here with, you know, our best-hearted intentions to want to not fix but help. And we say, okay, we either want to do a support group for people struggling with a mental illness or their mental health per se, or we want to create a support group for the helpers. What are some guidelines? What are some things that people should keep in mind when going about this? Are there any rules? Is there any definite don'ts? I'm assuming there's usually definite don'ts, but yeah, anything along these lines that could be helpful, either for now, present, moment, future, whatever's to come.
Yeah, thanks for great questions. It's nice. I think where we should start it, first of all, like, thank you for organizing such marvelous, great festival. We should definitely repeat it next year. This will be nice, no?
Yes.
Nice, good beginning. And I believe for positive social change, positive social personality change, or society change, or group change with social support, the advocacy might be the key word. So, like, you know, standing for any issues, standing out there for other person who doesn't has source or knowledge or experience that I have it, and I can use it as a power of information for advocacy, for supporting myself and other people. Because helping to someone is also helping myself. I'm helping someone, but also it's a side effect. I'm helping myself, because the helping is a deep psychology that, like, you know, makes the both side happy and might be positive outcomes that, like, oh, I'm helping it. Yeah, I'm this person. I have a nice personality, good person. Whatever, how you interpret it, it's based on like your personality. But what I'm saying, that this is my personality that I interpreted to help, and the social support and the social support group meeting is really helpful for me as like mental health professions, and also as like a person. Every month also I'm going to meeting for supervision meetings that like I'm putting my problems on the table, and I'm listening that how the other participator to interpret the situation, and shows that, like, based on their perspective and aspect, that how they interpret this situation or my problem, that, and this really helps me. And also it's like putting my problems on the table. It gives me like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, a relief a little bit, like, because it's so normal to talk about that. It's not a taboo anymore, because, sometimes it goes on my mind, oh, you psychologists, how you cannot be, such problems on your mind. You should be strong because like you helping the people, you're providing the social support. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not working like that, because it's like the stigma. It's also like I'm hearing from other people's or my family members, like, I have a brother, but my mom thinks that like I'm more strong and I can deal for everything, but my brother is more vulnerable because he's not psychologist. So this is like, and I have to deal with this, and I'm trying to deal with that. Hey mom, this is wrong, and let's talk about this. Everyone's is different, every job is different. This is the job, this is professional identity, and I have my personal identity. This personal identity needs social support, and I need social support. That's why like I'm making a meeting with other people. I do supervising sessions to get, and even like sometimes I have a struggling very hard, and I'll with a therapist too. I'll take myself to help too. This is, I feel like, so normal, and creating a lot of as possible as social group for social support. This might contribute positively, positive social change for everyone. Thanks.
I just want to add, therapists can also have therapists. And I want to add about the helpers before, this flight attendant analogy. When you're in an emergency on a plane, they always tell you that put your oxygen mask first before you help other people. So that's most important thing you need to remember when you're supporting someone. You cannot help someone when you're not helping yourself first. And about the support group is, I think I noticed some people, I think the question has also been raised in the group before, how, someone can start a support group. This is not really an advice, but probably just a practical thing in case someone is interested. You can get a support from this association. They will help you to find for a room, for example, if you want to do it like, they also have some social workers, counselors, or I'm also volunteering myself there. So if someone wants to, the thing about support group is it doesn't have to be guided. There's a guided support group and there's like a support group. Not all support groups have like professionals in it, but there's also a support group that has professionals in it, and they can help you to find volunteers, people who will do it for you for free. For example, I'm not sure, maybe you can also put it like an info later on the website or something. Exactly. And they're local. There's like an umbrella association, but there's also locals like in Berlin, in every city. They're probably also busy because again, they're also operating in a like very minimum, support from the government and everything. But it's there in case someone is interested.
I'm still thinking.
Yeah, I think for every support group, it's good to think about group dynamics and have maybe some group skills and be prepared for interesting, different roles, because in group therapy there are different positions and that all like influence the session. And I think to have really like clear, I don't like the word rules, but commitments, guidelines for every member, that every member is totally aware about that. So that the space is safe and that, the amount of time everyone has to speak and what kind of words are used and what kind of words are not okay. And like just make it really safe, and and for that I think it's super important to have some preparation time. Yeah, and I thought maybe we should create a support group for the social media because that would be super interesting, right? Like, okay, how do you deal with your social media account, and what kind of inputs do you get and what not, and what are you going to do with it? And Do you have some tips for others? Do you want to share some maybe inspiring channels, or maybe you know, because almost everyone is using it, but to somehow bring it back again into the society, that not everybody has it for its own. So more like share, and there I imagine it could be an interesting thing combined with then art maybe, and maybe some digital, like bring the digital into reality. Yeah, but that's just something that came up. So yeah, I think groups are incredibly great, and but they need some framework. Yeah.
Framework, yeah, frames things. I was just thinking, you know, if I were someone who had a need for me to be helping a lot, I don't think I would have the energy to start another support group. And I'm just asking myself now, like, if I were to do that, what would be my motivation for doing that? To like get involved in other people's problems, you know, in an even larger scale, you know. And I absolutely see the benefit and the value of attending a support group that's hosted by somebody else, but not necessarily in starting my own, because like how could I manage that with such you know, difficult situation already. So I think the first thing would be, like, you know, to examine my own reasons for wanting to do that. Is like, am I doing another version of the helper syndrome? If I can't help the person who I really want to help, can I help other people? And you know, and while of course that's, you know, it's a balance, it's a dance, because you probably could help other people, to again be aware of these boundaries, and to be aware that, you know, when other people come to such a support group, they're also dealing with very heavy issues that they're going to be bringing into this circle, and that's going to require group dynamic skills and group process skills, and to be careful with that. I also think about this an analogy of concentric circles, where the idea is that, you know, the person who's suffering the most is in the middle of this circle, and slightly outside of this middle of the circle are the people who are closest to them, friends, family, you know, trusted people, and the people who are helping the person in the center, they need to go even further out in that concentric circle to seek for people who can assist them, rather than who they also need help from, you know, to kind of like link up the hands to continually bring out the, you know, the support that's needed. And how, you know, sometimes the best support is to do things that have nothing to do with helping. Sometimes the best thing that we can do for our mental health is to go and you know, do our hobbies, and you know, and live regular lives. You know, do things that make us that remind us of how wonderful life can be, and that it's not only pain and suffering and you know, and digging into the darkness. So, you know, and I say that also really recognizing that that it is really helpful to be with other people who know what you're going through. So I think it's a balance, you know, as much as we can have balance in these difficult situations.
Well said. Can I add something? Absolutely.
So, you two of you already talked about dynamics, and I think I want to add to that. It's like people come with like maybe heavy topics, and I want to highlight how important it is maybe to, at the beginning of like creating the circles, like at each session, to be really playful, because being playful opens up the people so they forget about the heaviness of the situation, and like they get into engagement, they get into the state of like, I want to cooperate, I want to learn, I want to be curious. And I think this is something helpful. And in theory, you already mentioned the nonviolent communication or empathic communication. I think like getting close to this topic, this books of, how was the author, Rosenberg, the founder? Yeah, Rosenberg. Yeah, I think it's also like a great start to read maybe something about it, because there he's explained really great how to connect with the other people, like the deeper insight, and to understand what are the underlying needs of each person, and then also to observe their own feelings, how we relate to that, and also maybe, if necessary, to put boundaries because of that, or to ask questions, especially ask questions like how together can we raise the quality of life together, and then by that you have like a good objective together, I think.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's really important, of like creating a sense of unity also, of we're doing this all together to uplift each other and not to kind of wallow in the misery together necessarily. You know, as they say, misery loves company, but at the same time, I've also found that that doesn't make the misery better necessarily in the long term. So yeah, maybe to, yeah, please.
Like going back to what you were saying also at the beginning is like, I think it's realizing that we all go through the same things in life, like different levels and different reasons. And it occurred to me when I was listening, like Moni is doing a podcast, like interviewing other comedians about their mental health struggle. And because she shared it with me and I was listening to it. And so many things, even though I'd never really diagnosed myself as like depressed, but there's so many things where I was like, oh yeah, I can totally relate. Oh yeah, I've been there. And because they had been there and they had found the tools to get better, to hear them talk about it and like share their experiences and how to get better, I think that's where the power of like collective healing comes from, like by sharing those experiences and how there is a way to get better and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's by talking about it. So support groups are good, but like as you were saying, it's also to like share like positive experiences and how like basically give each other the tools to live.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wanted to like latch onto that because I think I would like to kind of, before we give questions open to the audience, a last question that I think I would like to ask to, put us on an upward swing a bit would be, what are your 3 like personal favorite like free resources that you found for yourself to be really uplifting, just that do the trick for you when you're down and out or whatever, that you feel like, wow, this just every time gets me every time. Like, because I think I found as well in the past, oftentimes hearing what other people are doing that might be never ever have crossed your mind, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll try that out. It could work for others, might not work at all, but plenty of people here, so that should amount to like 12 different things. Hopefully one is useful for somebody.
Yeah, pretty like basic. It's music, listening to music, making music, dancing to music, because it's just so incredible how music shifts the energy. Then spending time in nature, that's like wow. And then, I said that with the breathing already. And then, really like talk to your friends, those people who make you like laughing, like easy, right? Like help you to shift or get out of your mind. Yeah.
Do something with your body, sweat. Yeah, move enough to sweat. I feel like there's going to be a lot of repetition, but really, reach out to the one person who you trust the most, and make something with your hands, whether it's cooking, whether it's an art project, whether it's scribbling with crayons, or even cleaning. Do something that helps you see that you have an effect on your environment, that you made a difference, even if it was just scrubbing the toilet today.
It's gonna be funny because I use my body. Yeah, I like it. Sex, actually. Sex is like one of my coping strategies to feed my libido, so feel energized and something. The second one is meditation. I really like. And the third one is going to be bonsai arts. I like to touch the plants, cut them, give them the shape. This helped me to to separate my realistic and non-realistic ideas, and then I can see more clear path, something like that.
Yeah, like she said already, there will be a lot of repetition. Something that I just starting to do since maybe 3 months ago is combining the workout and music in spin class. Surprisingly, it's really hard in the beginning because it's like a whole body workout, but it's like, because of the lockdown, of course, no parties, right? I thought like the first time I've been in a dark room with other people and music and I'm working out, this is amazing. So it's something that you might try maybe. It's like a party, but you're sweating. I mean, first time I wasn't just sweating, I was dying. I'm like, no. But it's really good, something to try on. I've just started working out again after health issues, and also I had a baby. So running wasn't easy to get back into running in the beginning. And something that I do is there's this app from Nike. It's free. It's called NRC, Nike Run Club, and they have guided runs. So I've tried lots of run clubs before in Berlin. So we're running in group. Then I discovered that myself, I'm not a runner in a group because one, my pace is very slow, like a turtle, and it's just not my thing. I was like a solo runner, but everybody have their headphones on when you're running, and it's like guided, The first time is like 22 minutes, and someone is talking to you. They choose the music for you. I was like, this is amazing. So it's something that's free, and you can really try out if you want to. And I'm also I support myself while I was studying as a singer-songwriter. Just from going to like one open stage to another open stage in Berlin, I have like one song on Spotify. It's like not something. But yeah, I just like writing my thoughts and turn it into music. But it's also something small that you can try, writing your thoughts. So maybe it's helpful for someone else.
Yeah, that's my personal add-on as well. Yeah. Writing. Writing. Everything and anything, all down to the page. I've discovered that I was always a writer, studied journalism, but I didn't have a journaling practice like that until last year. Like I had a journal, but it was like, once every 3 months you would write something or whatnot. And since writing every day, sometimes multiple times a day, I just carry my journal with me everywhere, and it can just be like a 5-minute coffee thing, like something that came to mind. I found that to be amazing somehow. It does something super interesting with your brain when the chaos that's in here, you have to actually stop to think of words that make actual sense to put into a sentence, and then put that on a piece of paper, and then you read it and you're like, oh, wow. It's like something by taking it out of here, it's less jumbled. And yeah.
And I feel sometimes you realize it's not that bad. In your head it's horrible, and
exactly.
You write it down, and you're like, yeah, okay, well.
Yeah. And singing as well, or chanting. What if somebody says I can't sing? Whatever your voice is, in whatever weird ways you can use it. I found that one to be really helpful as well. Because if you're really angry, for example, let's say you're really, really angry, or you're really upset, and you're really depressed, for example, or you're feeling really anxious, there is a tone, whatever your voice is, there's a tone that will match that. And there's a expression of some sort that will match that, no matter how silent or low vibrational it is. There will be something that will come out.
Yeah, sound and music is really powerful. I discovered when I was studying, there's a friend of mine who's doing something with automobile, kind of. And he said these big companies who make like sports car, they employ psychologists to help them to make this car sound like so cool that people think like, oh, this is a strong car, So sound is more powerful than you think. And music, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. For meditation, in case any of the people who will see this later on the video, app that I found to be incredibly useful, and I'm generally not a person who's a fan of meditation apps. I learned it a little bit like the old school kind of hardcore way. You start right away with half an hour a day and like sit with it till it works, kind of struggle through. Doesn't have to be like that. I did find Insight Timer to be incredible. To be hands down, like just the only app that I think for me is really spot on. Like just because it has music, it has so many layers to it. Now they're working on the user experience and they're creating a new version of it as well. That's going to be, has I think also more like groups and things where you can follow your friends on the app and see what they're doing and what kind of meditations and stuff they're doing. That one I found to be very, very wide in the variety of what they offer.
Is it free? I don't know. But
The base version is free.
Okay.
There's a premium version for I think $10 a month or something, but I use the free one and it's got so much stuff like you would never be able to even sort through it all. Yeah. And really like really high caliber people as well, like presenting stuff. Like you have like Tara Brack on there and stuff. And it's like impressive. But yeah, thank you all for your resources. This is incredible.
Maybe I could add something because it came now to the sound and the power of sound. I have that project with a really good friend of mine. We both are working with hypnosis. And I had a long time the idea in my mind to create a space for people in the group where they can listen to hypnosis, to like a trance journey, but a guided trance journey, and we combine it with live music. So we use the music to really get you in a really deep, relaxed state. So it's not only the hypnosis, which you normally only listen to the words, but you listen to the sound. And we like really spend a lot of time thinking about the optimal sound, and we play it live. And it's like around 1 up to 2 hour experience. And we like do it here in Berlin several times and on festivals to create a space for people to reconnect with themselves without anything from outside, just with themselves, because hypnosis works with your subconscious. And it's so beautiful what happens when you open up for the connection to your subconscious, and then you get in a really deep, relaxed state. And in this deep, relaxed state, your whole system can recalibrate itself, and you can get new insights and find new solutions on a really gentle way. That's why I love that work so much. And combined with the music, it helps really the frequencies to support that process. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, I wanted to actually pass on the microphone to anybody who has a question now or wants to add something. Feel free.
I want to add the most free resource in all of that is basically yourself. Like, create a relationship with yourself. For me, it was really important that like life really screamed into my face like 5-6 years ago the concept of self-love, and until now I'm trying to understand it. And it's like I think this is create a relationship with yourself and learn what it means to love yourself, what it means to trust yourself, and see like that there are also like all this like teachers or even one teacher in you that is talking constantly to yourself, like and giving you positive feedback. And then one thing I also want to add is practice gratitude. Like realize how lucky you are in your life, what you have, that you have a roof, that you have something to eat, that you have friends, that you have water, a toilet, plants, simple things. Yeah. I think that.
There's just one remark I would like to add. I don't know, it's a little bit ambivalent, but it helped me a lot. And there's this sentence that depression is aggression directed at oneself at a very basic level. And to discover aggression as a resource, which is channeled, of course, into sport, into going out, into meeting people, into direct your into any kind of action, into any kind of real life doing, instead of ruminating and all that stuff. And I think as a society we value empathy and all that stuff, and it's of course this is necessary, but to have a more positive view on aggression is helped me a lot. So,
Yeah, I actually wanted to add something to that because that's actually how my therapy session started last year. I think it was November, end of October. That was the first thing. That was the actually first thing that my therapist said to me. She was like, "Your depression is basically it's anger. It's anger that's been flattened, and so therefore it's turned into a depression. Like it's anger that you haven't allowed yourself to express outward. It's aggression that you have not given a venting space to. So it's turned into this." To this kind of like dead inside situation. And I love that. Like the moment that she said that, it was like, what? Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. That makes total sense. And that opened a door all of a sudden of this, of work that had to do with this actually, especially I think, especially as women, I think, depending on where you've been raised and under what kind of like upbringing you've been raised, right, and what kind of culture. I'm Latin American, and like in Latin America, in South America, the view of the aggressive woman is not necessarily so like promoted. At least it wasn't in the older generations. It was kind of seen as something that was, you know, not really valuable. Like, you know, it's kind of like keep it down a notch or tone it down. And I think it's really interesting because I think for men this can also be a thing as well, depending on how you were raised, is how do we view aggression and how do we integrate it within ourselves? How do we honor it and embrace it as something that can be so powerful, and it can actually lift us up if we channel it the right way. And if we really learn to look at it and embrace it instead of rejecting it. So I think that I just really wanted to throw that pebble in there because that was something that changed a lot for me, of trying to understand that by rejecting the aggression you have within yourself, you create more of it. And that kind of creates that spiral as well. So yeah, thank you so much for that reminder, gentle reminder, yeah.
But I would also think that it's not just with aggression, it's like all kind of like unresolved wounds or trauma or problems that instead of like addressing it, you like repress it, and then you think something is wrong with you, and then it's a downward cycle, like. Yeah. But so that's the thing, yeah, it's like.
Speak to the microphone.
Because that's what people can't hear at home. No? Okay.
But yeah, so no, but everything like just so address it and let it out. And there's nothing wrong with it. Because you end up thinking there's something wrong with you because it's like all in there.
I'm sorry, but people who watch the video can hear you.
Yeah, they won't be able to hear.
I'm just going to repeat them. No, I was just saying that I don't think it's just with aggression. It's like in all kind of like unresolved trauma or wounds or something that you're holding on to. And that usually that's what, I mean, not always, but sometimes create depressions is because you hold it in there and it manifests itself when being triggered in one way or another in your life and in your emotions. And then you don't know where it's coming from. And so you think something is wrong with you. And then you start going into this like spiraling downward cycle. Well, in the end, there's nothing wrong. It's just manifestation of unresolved problems or aggression or something.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
Was referring to this metaphor that you brought about the Bühne, about the stage, when somebody's suffering and like there is a space where this person can bring the issue more and more. And I think a struggle that can be, or I have, is like, which is the border, like when it's like, because I think it's also the Bühne, like the stage can also be helpful because it's a space where this person can express this pain. But then sometimes I'm also asking myself, okay, but what if in this Bühne there is another conversation and there is happiness and we talk about the dinner and a dream, and that maybe is more helpful. But then and so sometimes I'm trying maybe to bring the conversation in that direction, and then I don't know, or should I leave more space for the pain, or should I try to transform it? And when, till which moment is helpful to leave space, and when it's maybe stopping to be helpful because it's still like, yeah, just like repeating and repeating. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good aspect. I mean, that had to do with like a WhatsApp group, right? And I think that refers to how do you deal with your phone, and what do you all do with your phone, and what are your times with your phone doing what. And when you need your phone a lot for work, and then all the time you are confronted with like personal or family things that make you worried a lot, you need to find a way how to save yourself so that you're not like overwhelmed, right? So that was more from this perspective about like, I said I asked for taking some Rücksicht, how you say? Reflection, like about the other consideration. For example, my mom sometimes just wrote like, oh, this friend of us died. And, you know, and sent like all these like messages of the dying people. And I was like, could you please think about that? I might receive that message when I'm in a state where I can't handle this good. Yeah. And she did it again and again. And I was like, Mom, I pleased you, yeah, because I'm vulnerable, because that you don't know where I am in that moment where I receive a message. So that's more where I'm what I said with the like WhatsApp stuff. It's a different thing when we're all in a room, like or meeting like together, right? So then you can say, okay, maybe he needs that stage, but we are all in this room together and feel the energy, and we can compare about like and see like the little like der kleine Blick, ne? Or the how the body gesture changed, and there's way more space than to react as a collective or as the group, or like to maybe rebalance the imbalance, right? So that's what I think, but it's always super difficult about like, okay, how far can I go? Because of course I want to help, but where am I, and do I have the resources? And okay, when he needs the stage, he can stay on that stage, and if there are other people enough to watch it, to watch the theater, fine. But I can decide if we meet after the theater, maybe just one-on-one, or if I leave. Yeah, and say, okay, maybe we talk in 2 days. Yeah, so but it always has to do with, okay, what's that person in, and what kind of space, what's really happening, and how can I deal with it, that I don't become a victim of his show. You know, it's like, don't get used for the purpose of others, but hey, I'm here for you if you really want to hear my opinion, and if you really want my help. But that's what you said too, right? It's like really, sometimes they don't really want it, or I'm not the right person to help them, right? So that's something really that needs to be clarified, and I think that's super important for self-care and self-love. But it's a super difficult thing because it will happen again and again, that you find yourself in a situation where you feel like, oh, that was not good for me now, right? Yeah. But then reflect about it and say, okay, what can I learn about it?
Yeah. And maybe to add, because I think this metaphor of the stage is really interesting, and whether the stage is a WhatsApp group, or it's a family, or it's a work situation, or it's a one-on-one relationship, I think the question is to ask, like, am I even aware of what is the stage right now? Mm-hmm. And what is the play? And who are the people in this play? Mm-hmm. Who are the characters? What is the character that I think I'm playing versus what is the character that I'm actually playing? And do I have agency in that? And, you know, without specifics, it's hard to know, you know, what your personal situation is. But I think there's really a lot to be said for being aware of which roles we constantly find ourselves playing, you know. So helper is a very common role. But there's also the role of like the critical person, you know, or there's the role of the ever optimistic person, you know, or there's the role of the cynic, or there's the role of the person who's always very rational, you know. So it's a question of kind of like, you know, what is the dynamic between me and this person right now, and what role are they playing, and what is it inviting me to play?
Yeah, and how am I triggered? Because when I'm triggered, that has only something to do with myself, not with the other person. But how do I deal with my triggers? Yeah.
I have one resource or like a practice that's helpful. I started going on walks and recording myself talking as if I'm talking to someone who loves me unconditionally. Or that's me. Like I just think of it as, I don't really picture anyone in particular. I just, okay, I'm recording this. I'm gonna go walk around and make a recording, like a diary, but an audio diary, and just talk about stuff, whatever's going on. And so it's nice because it combines this getting in the body, moving at the pace of the body, looking at trees, getting sunlight. And yeah, I just have made it into a very regular practice, and I find it to be like really helpful. It's just like taking your thoughts and feelings and putting them into words and saying those words out loud is on its own like powerful and helpful. And I think the one other thing that didn't really come up tonight, but I think has been helpful for me is solitude, like spending time alone intentionally. Because I think like social media is really cool, and our phones are really cool, and they do everything. But I think one thing that they do that's not good is make us afraid of being alone, because we're always connected. And it's like not having your phone is like, it's impossible for so many people. So having like a practice of like, I'm going to be alone and I'm not going to look at my phone for this amount of time, and like maybe starting slowly, but building, because it's cool that we have this technology, but like we shouldn't be on it constantly. That it's too fast. Like, so that's going back to the pace of the body. Like this, you can do this with your finger and then everything changes. And you're in an entirely new world, and like, that's too fast. So taking time to be alone, and yeah, that's all.
Actually, I can just add, like, so are you actually recording yourself talking?
Yeah.
Okay, because I do a similar thing, but I don't record. I just talk to myself. I go for walks and I talk to myself. And what I find is really interesting is to notice how I talk to myself. Like sometimes I would go and I would be like in a super like nice and positive and good conversation, and then sometimes I'm just super harsh on myself. And just to become aware of that, to become aware of the time where you're actually super harsh to yourself, and you wouldn't even talk to a friend like that. And somebody was saying earlier, like, talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend.
Do you listen to yourself? Do you recording again, or?
I've never sat through an entire recording. I've before like jumped back and just like clicked on one of them and skipped through it. But no, the only time that I really did that was when I wrote a letter, but I read it out loud to myself, recorded that before sending it to someone. Just so I had a record of this letter. I don't know, I wanted to like know where my mind was at that time. I guess I could have made a copy of that letter, but that's what I did.
I have something to
add. I think what I discovered last year, end of last year, is that besides therapy, there's many ways of helping ourselves, especially books. I start to read intensively end of last year. it really helped me to make so many breakthroughs. For example, one book I really, really loved is called Lost Connections by Johan Hari. In the middle of the second lockdown, I started a support group. We every 2 weeks we meet to discuss one chapter of the book, and throughout time we made friends, we made connections, and helped us deal lots of issues. One thing in the book it mentioned is that the reason why our society are so unhappy now is all due to all kinds of lost connections, disconnection with our body, with nature, meaningful values, and meaningful jobs. And I got inspired. I asked myself, okay, what if we lost connection, how can I help people to find the connection? And beginning of this year, I started to do lots of community work, community like mental health groups, myself is a stand-up comedian. I started to do community work in my artist groups and also in my building. And every time I just make very simple things. For example, I just put a desk in the courtyard and write to everyone, say, that's the day, this hour, we all meet and let's have a drink. And eventually I made friends with my neighbor, and it turns out for 10 years, no one has ever organized anything like that, and no one has talked with anyone. So we really can use like a really small efforts to make lots of impact. And along the way, we help ourselves so much also. For example, this whole festival came, probably the idea was planned when I was reading this book. And along this journey of this whole festival, I met so many amazing people. We made so many connections, like personally, and in the future, we are going to collaborate in all different types of ways. So really, I recommend read as much book as you can. I really recommend audiobooks. I like to go for long walks. For example, a month ago, I came out from a long-term committed relationship. It was 3.5 years long, and 1 year ago, if I think about a breakup, I would think I will kill myself because I cannot deal with the loss. But actually, when it happened, I knew that I'm going to power through. I knew that if I stay at home, I will get depressed. So what I did is just I go out every day, take a long walk for 8 hours and listen to audiobooks. And in like 3 days, I listened 10 books. And by the end of third day, I start to realize actually breakup is quite a good thing. Like I don't need to pretend I love his family anymore. And I don't need to sleep while his 3D printer running in my bedroom. And I can start to meet new guys, like handsome, funny, interesting guys. So at the end he came back, he said, let's come together. And I was like, no, I realize it's really good. Let's stay this way. So that's my journey. I really recommend everyone read. And later I will publish like blog post also on our website to summarize some really well-known and really helpful scientific books. Please have a look.
I was going to add something. Yeah, I was going to to continue to what you were saying about the about the breakup is like learning to change the narrative. Like what I notice is like something happens to us. Like we can't control what's going to happen to us in our lives. Like we can't control the situations we're going to go through, but we can control what we make of it and the narrative we build around it, because something happens and you create a story around it to make sense of it. But the story is shaped by previous experiences and things, but it doesn't have to be that way. And when you learn to like detach yourself from a situation and little by little change the narrative and take control of the narrative and how it's going to impact your life, then suddenly like it shifts from like being suicidal because you broke up to like being happy and not wanting him back. So yeah.